raised my daughter alone for years after her mother left us, but she chose her stepdad to walk her down the aisle instead of me, so I skipped her wedding and cut her from my will. Sarah was 5 years old when her mother packed up and left us both behind without any real explanation, just some garbage about needing to find herself and that she wasn't ready to be a mother, and I remember standing in our empty kitchen holding my little girl's hand while she asked me where mommy went and why she took all her clothes with her. I told Sarah that sometimes adults make mistakes and that mommy needed to go away for a while but that daddy would always be here, and from that day forward it was just me and her against the world, no help from anyone else, no family support because my parents lived 3 states away and her mother's family acted like we didn't exist anymore. I worked double shifts at the factory for years to keep us afloat, coming home exhausted every night but still helping Sarah with her homework at the kitchen table, making sure she had everything she needed for school the next day, packing her lunches with little notes inside because I wanted her to know someone cared about her even when I couldn't be there. The weekends were for us, taking her to the park, teaching her how to ride a bike, going to every single school play and soccer game even when I was dead tired from working overtime, because that's what a real parent does, they show up no matter what. When Sarah turned 8, her mother suddenly reappeared wanting visitation rights, claiming she had gotten her life together and wanted to be part of Sarah's life again, but by then Sarah barely remembered her and would cry whenever it was time to go spend the weekend at her mother's new apartment across town. I had to force these visits because the court said I had to, even though Sarah would come back confused and upset, asking me why her mother had all these new friends and why she seemed different, but I just told her that people change and that she should try to have a good relationship with her mother if possible. The visits continued sporadically for a few years, with her mother canceling at the last minute more often than not, leaving Sarah disappointed and me furious because I could see how much it hurt my daughter when the woman who was supposed to love her most kept letting her down over and over again. I never said anything bad about her mother in front of Sarah because I knew that would only hurt her more, but inside I was seething at how this woman could walk back into our lives whenever it was convenient for her and then disappear again when things got complicated. When Sarah turned 13, her mother got married to some guy named Marcus who worked in sales and seemed nice enough on the surface, and suddenly she wanted to play happy family again, inviting Sarah to spend summers with them and taking her on vacations that I could never afford on my factory wages. Sarah would come back from these trips talking about how much fun she had and how Marcus taught her how to play guitar and took her to concerts, and I could see her starting to get attached to this man who had everything I couldn't give her, money and free time and a mother who was suddenly acting like she cared. I kept my mouth shut and let Sarah enjoy these experiences because I wanted her to be happy, even though it killed me to watch her bond with a man who had done nothing to earn the right to be in her life, while I had been there every single day for years, working myself to the bone to make sure she had everything she needed. Marcus started showing up to some of Sarah's school events, standing next to her mother like they were the proud parents, while I sat alone in the back row. The summer before Sarah's senior year of high school, she told me she wanted to live with her mother and Marcus full time because their house was closer to her school and her friends, and she said it would be easier for her to focus on college applications without having to go back and forth between 2 houses all the time. I knew this was really about wanting to be part of the perfect little family her mother had created, but I agreed because I thought it was temporary and because I wanted Sarah to be happy, even though it meant coming home to an empty house every night. Sarah finished high school and got into a good college, and Marcus helped pay for it because he had the money to do things like that, while I contributed what I could from my savings and took on extra shifts to help with expenses. I was proud of her for getting into college and I was glad she had the opportunities I never had, but it stung that Marcus was getting credit for helping her succeed when I was the one who had made sure she did her homework every night for 13 years and taught her the value of hard work and determination. 3 months ago, Sarah called me to tell me she was engaged to her college boyfriend David, and I was excited for her because she sounded happy and I wanted to meet this kid who had won my daughter's heart. She invited me to dinner to meet David and talk about the wedding plans, and I thought this would be a chance for us to reconnect since we hadn't been spending as much time together lately with her living at her mother's house and being busy with college and work. The dinner went well and David seemed like a good kid, respectful and clearly crazy about Sarah, and we talked about their plans for the future and how they wanted a small wedding with just close family and friends. Sarah was showing me pictures of venues and dresses on her phone, asking for my opinion about different options, and I felt like we were finally getting back to the relationship we used to have when it was just the 2 of us. Then Sarah got quiet and looked at David, and he nodded at her like they had practiced this conversation, and she said she had something to ask me about the wedding that was really important to her. She started talking about how much Marcus had meant to her over the years and how he had been like a father to her during some of the most important times in her life, and I could feel my stomach dropping because I knew where this was going before she even said the words. Sarah asked if it would be okay if Marcus walked her down the aisle instead of me because she felt like he had been more involved in raising her during her teenage years and that he deserved the honor of giving her away on her wedding day. She said she hoped I would understand and that it didn't mean she loved me any less, but that Marcus had earned the right to be the one to walk her down the aisle. I sat there staring at my daughter, this kid I had fed and clothed and loved for 21 years, mostly by myself, and she was telling me that some man who had been in her life for 9 years deserved to have the moment that every father dreams about. I asked her if she was serious and she said yes, that this was really important to her and that she hoped I would support her decision, and David just sat there looking uncomfortable like he knew this was going to cause problems. I told Sarah that I couldn't believe she would ask me something like that after everything I had done for her, and that Marcus didn't deserve anything because he had shown up when all the hard work was already done and she was practically an adult. She started crying and saying that I was being unfair and that Marcus had been there for her during some really difficult times, and that just because I was her biological father didn't mean I automatically deserved to walk her down the aisle. The conversation got heated fast, with Sarah yelling that I was being selfish and that I should be happy she had multiple father figures who cared about her, and me yelling back that Marcus wasn't her father and never would be, that I was the one who had sacrificed everything to raise her when her mother ran off to play house with someone else. David tried to calm things down, but I told him to stay out of it because this was between me and my daughter, and Sarah got even more upset and said I was embarrassing her in front of her fiancé. I left the restaurant that night knowing that my relationship with my daughter had changed forever, and that no matter what happened next, I would never be able to look at her the same way again. She called me the next day crying and apologizing for how the conversation went, but she said her decision was final and that she really wanted Marcus to walk her down the aisle, and she begged me to please understand and still come to the wedding. I told Sarah that if she wanted Marcus to have that honor, then she had made her choice about who her real father was, and that I wouldn't sit in the audience and watch another man take credit for raising the daughter I had loved and cared for since she was 5 years old. She started crying harder and saying that I was ruining her wedding and that she never meant to hurt me, but I told her that the damage was already done and that actions have consequences. The next week I went to see my lawyer and had him draw up new paperwork removing Sarah from my will and leaving everything to my brother instead, because if she wanted to choose Marcus as her father then she could depend on him for her inheritance too. I also canceled the check I had written to help pay for the wedding, and I told Sarah that Marcus could cover her wedding expenses since he was the one getting the father privileges. Sarah has been calling and texting me for weeks, sometimes crying and begging me to reconsider, sometimes angry and telling me that I'm being cruel and vindictive, but I haven't changed my mind because I know that I'm right about this. You don't get to reject your real father and then expect him to still act like your father when it's convenient for you, and if Sarah thinks Marcus is such a great father figure then she can find out what it's like to depend on him for everything instead of me. My brother thinks I'm being too harsh and that I should go to the wedding anyway because Sarah is still my daughter no matter what, but he doesn't understand what it feels like to give everything you have to someone for over 20 years just to have them tell you that someone else deserves the credit for raising them. My coworkers at the factory mostly agree with me, saying that what Sarah did was disrespectful and that she needs to learn that her choices have consequences, and that maybe this will teach her to appreciate what she had instead of taking it for granted. The wedding is next month and Sarah keeps calling, but I'm not going to change my mind about this because I know that if I give in now she'll never respect me again, and she'll keep choosing Marcus over me whenever she has to pick between us. I raised my daughter to be strong and independent, and now she needs to live with the choices she's making, even if those choices hurt the person who loved her most. Update: the wedding happened last Saturday and I didn't go, and I spent the day working on my truck in the garage trying to keep my mind off what was happening across town while my daughter got married without her real father there to see it. My brother called me that morning trying one last time to convince me to change my mind and show up, but I told him that I had made my decision and that Sarah had made hers, and that some things can't be undone once you cross that line. I found out later from my cousin Emma, who did go to the wedding, that Marcus walked Sarah down the aisle wearing a big smile like he had actually earned the right to be there, and that Sarah looked beautiful in her dress but kept looking around like she was hoping to see me in the crowd even though she knew I wasn't coming. Emma said the ceremony was nice and that David seemed nervous but happy, and that afterwards they had the reception at some fancy country club that Marcus probably helped pay for. The part that really got to me was when Emma told me about the speeches during the reception, because Sarah's mother got up and gave this long speech about how proud she was of Sarah and how grateful she was to Marcus for being such an amazing stepfather and helping to raise such a wonderful young woman. She talked about Marcus like he was the hero of the story, like he had swooped in and saved Sarah from something terrible, and she never mentioned me once during the entire speech, not even to acknowledge that I had been part of Sarah's life before Marcus came along. Emma said people in the crowd were looking around uncomfortably because everyone knew that I had raised Sarah by myself for most of her childhood, and that it was weird to hear her mother giving Marcus all the credit for how Sarah turned out when he had only been around for 9 years. But nobody said anything because it was Sarah's wedding day and nobody wanted to cause drama, so they all just sat there and listened to this woman rewrite history like I had never existed. Sarah also gave a speech thanking Marcus for being her father figure and for always being there when she needed him, and she talked about how lucky she was to have him in her life and how much he had taught her about being a good person. Emma said Sarah's voice was shaking and she kept looking at the door like part of her was still hoping I would show up, but she never mentioned me in her speech either, like she had decided that acknowledging me would somehow take away from Marcus's moment. The worst part was hearing that Marcus gave a speech about how honored he was to walk Sarah down the aisle and how proud he was to be her father, and he talked about watching her grow into the amazing woman she had become and how he felt blessed to be part of her journey. Emma said he got all choked up talking about how much Sarah meant to him and how he considered her his own daughter, and people were crying and clapping like this was some beautiful father-daughter moment instead of a complete joke. I kept thinking about all the times I had imagined walking Sarah down the aisle, from when she was little and would play dress up in my old shirts, to when she was in high school and talking about what kind of wedding she wanted someday. I had always pictured myself being the one to give her away, looking proud in my best suit while she held my arm and smiled at me like I was her hero, and instead some other man got that moment while I sat at home like I didn't matter. Emma also told me that several people at the wedding asked her where I was, and when she explained that I wasn't coming because of the situation with Marcus walking Sarah down the aisle, most people were shocked and said they couldn't believe Sarah would do that to me. Some of her mother's family members apparently made comments about how ungrateful Sarah was being, and how I had done everything for her when her mother abandoned us, but of course they said these things quietly so Sarah wouldn't hear them and get upset. The Monday after the wedding, Sarah's mother started calling my relatives and telling them that I was a terrible father for missing my own daughter's wedding, and that I was being petty and vindictive over something that shouldn't have been a big deal. She told my brother that I was damaging Sarah emotionally by holding grudges and that a real father would have put his daughter's happiness first instead of making her wedding day about my own hurt feelings. My sister called me furious after talking to Sarah's mother, because she couldn't believe the nerve of this woman who had abandoned Sarah when she was 5 years old and then disappeared for years, suddenly acting like she was the expert on good parenting and family relationships. My sister told Sarah's mother exactly what she thought about her opinions on fatherhood, and that she had a lot of nerve judging me when she was the one who had walked out on her kid and left me to do all the hard work by myself. Sarah has been calling me every few days since the wedding, sometimes crying and saying she misses me and wants to fix things between us, and sometimes angry and telling me that I ruined her wedding day by not being there and that everyone was asking where I was and she didn't know what to tell them. She keeps saying that choosing Marcus to walk her down the aisle didn't mean she didn't love me, and that I should have been mature enough to understand that she just wanted to honor someone who had been important to her during her teenage years. I told Sarah that she made her choice when she decided Marcus deserved that honor instead of me, and that she couldn't expect me to pretend like everything was fine when she had basically told me that another man was more of a father to her than I was. She started crying and saying that wasn't what she meant, but I told her that actions speak louder than words and that her actions had made it very clear how she felt about me compared to Marcus. My family is split on whether I'm doing the right thing, with some people saying that I should forgive Sarah because she's young and made a mistake, and other people saying that what she did was unforgivable and that she needs to learn that disrespecting me has consequences. My brother keeps telling me that Sarah is still my daughter and that family is more important than pride, but I keep telling him that respect is a two-way street and that Sarah chose to disrespect me in the worst possible way. The hardest part is that I can't stop thinking about what the wedding would have been like if I had been there, and whether Sarah was really happy or if part of her was thinking about me the whole time and wishing things had been different. Emma said Sarah looked sad during parts of the reception, especially when other fathers were dancing with their daughters, and that she kept checking her phone like she was hoping I would call or text her. But I know that if I had gone to that wedding and watched Marcus walk my daughter down the aisle, it would have destroyed something inside me that I could never get back, and I would have spent the rest of my life knowing that I had been too weak to stand up for myself when it really mattered. Some people might think I'm being stubborn or cruel, but I know that I did the right thing by staying home and maintaining my dignity instead of sitting there like some kind of second-class citizen in my own daughter's life. Update 2. Everything changed last month when the truth about why Sarah's mother really left came out, and it turns out that the story she had been telling everyone for over 20 years was complete garbage designed to hide what she had actually done to our family. I found out about it because Marcus called me directly, which was the last thing I expected since we had never really talked one-on-one before, and he sounded completely destroyed when he told me what he had discovered about the woman he had been married to for 9 years. Marcus said he had been going through some old paperwork in their attic, looking for tax documents from previous years, when he found a box of letters and medical records that Sarah's mother had hidden away and apparently forgotten about. The letters were from some guy named Robert who Sarah's mother had been having an affair with while we were still married, and the medical records showed that she had gotten pregnant by this Robert guy and had given birth to a baby boy in another state about 6 months after she left us. The baby had been put up for adoption immediately, and Sarah's mother had never told anyone about it, not me, not Sarah, not even Marcus when they got married years later, and she had been carrying this secret around for over 2 decades while letting everyone think she had left because she wasn't ready to be a mother to Sarah. Marcus found adoption papers and hospital records and even some pictures of the baby, and he said it was clear that Sarah's mother had planned the whole thing out carefully to hide what she had really done. Marcus was calling me because he said he felt sick about the lies and that he couldn't stay married to someone who had deceived him so completely about her past, and he wanted me to know the truth before he confronted Sarah's mother about what he had found. He also said he felt terrible about walking Sarah down the aisle now that he knew the real story about why her mother had abandoned us, and that he never would have agreed to it if he had known that Sarah's mother was a cheater and a liar who had destroyed our family for another man. When Marcus confronted Sarah's mother with the evidence, she apparently broke down and admitted everything, claiming that she had been young and confused and that her affair with Robert had been a mistake that got out of hand. She said she had given the baby up for adoption because she knew it would destroy our marriage if I found out, and that she had left me and Sarah because she couldn't live with the guilt of what she had done and couldn't face telling us the truth. Marcus told me that Sarah's mother begged him not to leave her and promised that she would tell Sarah and me the truth about everything, but he said he couldn't trust her anymore and that their marriage was over because it had been built on lies from the beginning. He packed his bags and moved out that same day, and he filed for divorce the following week, leaving Sarah's mother alone for the first time since she had married him 9 years ago. The news about Marcus leaving spread quickly through Sarah's mother's family, and people started asking questions about why such a stable marriage had fallen apart so suddenly, which forced Sarah's mother to start telling people the real story about why she had left me and Sarah all those years ago. Some of her relatives were horrified when they learned the truth, especially her sister who had always defended Sarah's mother and made me out to be the bad guy for not being more understanding about her need to find herself. Sarah found out about everything when her mother called her crying and confessing the whole story. And apparently Sarah was completely shocked because she had grown up believing that her mother had left because she was too young and immature to handle being a parent, not because she had cheated on me and gotten pregnant by another man. Sarah had spent years feeling sorry for her mother and thinking that maybe I had been too hard on her, and now she was learning that everything she thought she knew about her family history was a lie. Marcus also called Sarah to apologize for walking her down the aisle and to explain that he never would have done it if he had known the truth about her mother, and he told her that I was the one who deserved that honor and that he felt terrible about taking it away from me. He said that learning about Sarah's mother's affair and the secret baby had made him realize how much I had been wronged, and that he respected me for raising Sarah alone after being betrayed so completely. Sarah called me 2 days after learning the truth, and she was crying so hard I could barely understand what she was saying at first, but she kept apologizing over and over again and saying that she had no idea about any of this and that she never would have chosen Marcus over me if she had known what her mother had really done. She said she felt sick thinking about how she had treated me and how she had believed her mother's lies about needing to find herself when the real reason was so much worse. I told Sarah that I appreciated her apology but that the damage had already been done, and that learning about her mother's affair didn't change the fact that she had chosen to honor Marcus instead of me on her wedding day. She started crying harder and saying that she understood why I was angry but that she hoped we could work things out now that she knew the truth, and that she wanted to make things right between us somehow. Update 3. Sarah showed up at my front door last Saturday morning without calling first, and when I opened the door she looked like she hadn't been sleeping much, with dark circles under her eyes and her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail that reminded me of how she used to look when she was little and upset about something. She was holding a cup of coffee from the place we used to go to on Saturday mornings when she was in middle school, and she had brought me one too, the same order I always used to get, black coffee with 2 sugars. She asked if we could talk and said she had been thinking about everything that had happened and that she couldn't stand having our relationship be so broken, especially now that she knew the truth about her mother and understood why I had been so hurt about the wedding situation. I let her come inside because she looked so sad and tired, and we sat at my kitchen table where we used to do her homework together when she was younger, and she started crying before she even said anything. Sarah told me that learning about her mother's affair and the secret baby had completely changed how she saw everything that had happened between us, and that she felt horrible for not appreciating how much I had sacrificed to raise her alone after being betrayed so completely by her mother. She said she had been replaying her childhood memories and realizing how hard I had worked to give her a good life, and how much her mother's lies had affected the way she understood our family history. She talked about how Marcus had been calling her to apologize for walking her down the aisle and to tell her that he felt terrible about taking that honor away from me, and how he had said that I was the one who deserved to be recognized as her real father because I was the one who had been there for her when it really mattered. Sarah said that hearing Marcus say those things had made her realize how wrong she had been to choose him over me, and how much she had hurt me by making that decision. Sarah kept apologizing and saying that she knew she had made a terrible mistake and that she wanted to find a way to make things right between us, and she asked if there was anything she could do to earn my forgiveness and repair our relationship. She said she had been talking to her husband David about everything, and that he felt bad about the whole situation too and wanted to have a better relationship with me going forward. I told Sarah that I appreciated her coming to see me and that I could see she was genuinely sorry about what had happened, but that I needed her to understand how much damage had been done and that it wasn't something that could be fixed with just an apology. I explained that watching her choose Marcus over me had broken something inside me that couldn't be easily repaired, and that learning about her mother's lies didn't erase the pain of being rejected by my own daughter on her wedding day. Sarah started crying harder and saying that she understood why I was hurt but that she hoped I wouldn't give up on our relationship completely, and that she was willing to do whatever it took to prove that she loved me and valued everything I had done for her over the years. She said she had been thinking about ways to show me that she was sorry, including maybe having some kind of ceremony where I could walk her down the aisle symbolically, or finding other ways to honor me as her father. I told Sarah that grand gestures weren't going to fix this problem and that what I needed was time to figure out whether I could trust her again, because trust was something that had to be rebuilt slowly and couldn't be forced. She asked me what she could do to start rebuilding that trust, and I told her that the first step would be for her to understand that actions have consequences and that some damage can't be undone just because you're sorry about it. We talked for about 2 hours, with Sarah telling me about how difficult things had been since learning about her mother's affair and how guilty she felt about believing her mother's lies for so many years. She said she had confronted her mother about lying to her and that they had gotten into a huge fight, with Sarah yelling that her mother had manipulated her into thinking I was the bad guy when really her mother was the one who had destroyed our family by cheating and abandoning us. Sarah also told me that she had been thinking about our relationship over the years and realizing how many times her mother had made subtle comments that painted me in a negative light, making it seem like I was bitter or resentful when really I was just hurt by being abandoned and having to raise Sarah alone. She said she could see now how her mother had been manipulating the situation to make herself look better and to justify her decision to leave us. The conversation was emotionally exhausting for both of us, and by the end of it Sarah was begging me to please not give up on her and to give her a chance to prove that she was sorry and that she wanted to have a real relationship with me again. She said she couldn't stand the thought of losing me forever because of a mistake she had made based on lies her mother had told her, and that she needed me in her life because I was her real father and always had been. I told Sarah that I wasn't ready to make any promises about our future relationship and that I needed more time to process everything that had happened and figure out how I felt about moving forward. She looked disappointed but said she understood and that she would respect my need for space, and that she would wait as long as it took for me to decide whether we could rebuild our relationship. Before she left, Sarah asked if she could hug me, and when I said yes she hugged me tight like she used to when she was little and scared about something, and I could feel her shaking as she cried into my shoulder. She whispered that she loved me and that she was sorry for hurting me so badly, and that she hoped someday I would be able to forgive her and we could be close again like we used to be. After Sarah left, I spent the rest of the day thinking about our conversation and trying to figure out how I felt about everything she had said, and whether I believed that she was genuinely sorry or if this was just another attempt to manipulate me into forgiving her. Part of me wanted to believe that she had learned from her mistakes and that we could rebuild our relationship, but another part of me was still too hurt and angry to trust her completely. The truth is that learning about her mother's affair has explained a lot of things that never made sense before, and it has made me realize that Sarah was working with false information when she made the decision to choose Marcus over me. But it doesn't change the fact that she chose to hurt me in the worst possible way, and that she prioritized Marcus's feelings over mine even when she should have known better. I keep thinking about whether forgiveness is something that Sarah has to earn or something that I should give freely because she's my daughter and I love her, but I honestly don't know the answer to that question right now. What I do know is that I can't just pretend like nothing happened and go back to the way things were before, because too much damage has been done and too much trust has been broken. Sarah has been texting me every few days since our conversation, not pushing for a response but just letting me know that she's thinking about me and that she's still hoping we can work things out. She sent me a picture of her and David at dinner last week, and she looked happy but also sad, like part of her was missing because we weren't talking regularly anymore. I haven't decided yet whether I'm going to try to rebuild our relationship or whether the damage is too severe to fix, but I know that whatever I decide, it has to be on my terms and in my own time. Sarah hurt me badly, and even though I understand now that she was influenced by her mother's lies, that doesn't automatically erase the pain of being rejected and replaced by another man on one of the most important days of her life. The one thing I'm certain about is that I'm not going to rush into anything or make decisions based on guilt or pressure from other people, because this is about my relationship with my daughter and my own emotional well-being. If we're going to have a relationship going forward, it has to be built on honesty and mutual respect, not on lies and manipulation like the relationship Sarah had with her mother all these years.